Application of the Noble Eightfold Path in Life, Right View. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. The Noble Eightfold Path is considered the singular path to joy and liberation. Concept of a singular path should not only be understood literally as the only way or the most effective path, but also in the sense that practitioners who engage in its practice and application will attain worldly merit, liberation, and even sainthood. The effectiveness of the Noble Eightfold Path helps practitioners transcend two modes of living. One is indulging in sensory pleasures, culminating in marital sexual life. The other is the strenuous effort of asceticism, suppressing the body, which leads to a loss of sensory enjoyment. Both are mistaken as the path to liberation. The Noble Eightfold Path steers us away from these two extremes, helping individuals develop right vision and apply faith in right thinking. The Noble Eightfold Path is a spiritual path capable of transforming ordinary people into saints. First and foremost is right view, or correct vision, the initial factor on the Noble Path that all spiritual practitioners must traverse. Pali Canon divides right view into two levels: mundane right view and supermundane right view. Living an ethical life, developing virtuous behavior, and creating mundane merit, such as observing the 5 precepts and the 3 refuges, allows one to enjoy the blessings they have cultivated after rebirth. In addition to the 5 precepts, practicing the 10 good deeds can lead to rebirth in various heavenly realms after death, depending on the intensity and degree of one's virtuous action. This represents the non-human realms, such as extraterrestrial life. A person who practices and lives with right view exhibits selflessness from 2 perspectives: psychological and epistemological. Epistemologically, selflessness is first understood by recognizing that the universe has no initial cause, whether it be a deity, materialism, or the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. Even from an idealistic perspective, one sees the clear process of dependent origination, leading to the operation, existence, development, and decay of all things, allowing a new process to follow similar steps. Right thinking, right intention, is defined as all the initial thoughts and intentions of an individual that are free from greed, hatred, and delusion. According to Buddhist psychology, all defilements that lead to suffering have their direct roots in these 3 poisons. Buddhist practitioners must transform thoughts related to killing, hatred, delusion, and craving. Those who strive to eliminate all 4 unwholesome thoughts are considered to be practicing right thinking. Here, right thinking goes beyond just positive or correct thinking, as defined by inductive, deductive, or analogous reasoning. It is a form of superior thinking that is worthy of practice, aiming to attain joy and liberation in life. When analyzing right speech within the Noble Eightfold Path, we gain a key to self-help in resolving social impasses. Right speech in the 4 Noble Truths is similar to the 4th of the 5 precepts that all Buddhists are encouraged to practice, which encompasses 4 aspects. 1. Speaking the truth. 2. Using words that build and unify. 3. Speaking with culture and character. 4. Using words that are beneficial and valuable. The 4th precept is often misunderstood as merely abstaining from lying, but if we ignore the other 3 aspects, the means of communication will be hindered. Proclaiming the truth is the first step, but without the remaining 3 aspects, communication is seen as obstructed. Right action, sammakamanta, is defined in several suttas. The common agreement that it involves refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. The definition is simple, but its application is detailed in various scriptures, helping us to easily grasp the nature of right action as the foundation leading to saintly action. In other words, there is no saintly action without right action. Right livelihood is more important than the concept of joyful livelihood, as expressed in the phrase, "settle down and enjoy work." Settling down is understood as being stable in one place, not needing to move or be affected by external environments, leading to stable employment and happiness. Right livelihood inherently includes these 2 factors, along with others such as ethics, law, and right understanding. Only those who live by right livelihood have the opportunity to accomplish the other 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Without right livelihood, there is no right view, and vice versa. Those living in wrong livelihood can only have wrong thinking because it is based on greed, hatred, and delusion. Right effort is described in three aspects: abandoning evil, doing good, and purifying the mind, as outlined in the Dhammapada verse 183. Do no evil, cultivate good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Right effort is the crucial link that creates a close relationship in the cause and effect practice with the first 5 factors: right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. The last 2 factors that complete the path are right mindfulness and right concentration. In the 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, any lack of right effort will hinder the practice. Although it is listed 6th, its importance supports the other factors, leading to success. Right mindfulness is the spiritual handbook, the daily practice for all practitioners. In the Noble Eightfold Path, right view and right effort are paramount, followed by right mindfulness. With right mindfulness, one's speech will always be kind, harmonious, cultured, and beneficial. With right mindfulness guiding one's actions, they will not involve killing, stealing, or sexual misconduct, avoiding all occupational hazards and accident. Right mindfulness is the process of adjusting one's attitude and emotional reactions, helping one avoid the extremes mentioned earlier. Thus, practitioners eliminate greed and hatred, uprooting delusion. In other words, when practicing right mindfulness, we significantly address the impurities of the body and mind. Right concentration is the 8th level of the Eightfold Tower, heavily dependent on the 7 preceding levels. For right concentration to manifest early and sustainably until the practitioner attains the fruits of liberation, first 7 levels are indispensable. Right concentration should not be understood merely as mental focus. It is the training of the mind based on 3 wholesome factors: non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. In summary, right concentration resolves the problem of suffering. Right view begins the issue of spiritual life at a high level, and the remaining 6 factors are essential supports. Without completing all 7 right factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, it is difficult to achieve right concentration. Regardless of the practice, all practitioners need to cultivate the initial 7 factors, from right view to right mindfulness, so that right concentration can be achieved at the highest level. Ignoring the first 7 right factors means right concentration cannot be attained, which we must firmly believe. With right concentration, wisdom arises and practitioners achieve liberation. Right view, vision and value, illusion and fear. The Noble Eightfold Path is a spiritual path capable of transforming ordinary people into saints. First and foremost is right view, or correct vision, the initial factor on the noble path that all spiritual practitioners must traverse. Before analyzing, let us consider the story of a delusional person. The story is about a person who suffers from delusions and hallucinations, and his family takes him to a mental hospital. Here, the doctor examines his senses and mind and discovers that he has a severe hallucination problem. The hallucination causes him irrational fear of roosters. Every time he hears a rooster crow or sees one, he panics and runs away. In psychiatric therapy, there is a part of self-suggestion, and the doctor applies this method, asking him to repeat as a mindfulness process. I am stronger than the rooster. I can kill the rooster. The rooster is smaller than me, and it cannot harm me. Repeating this phrase many times, like feeding data into the mind, can control and adjust the functions of cognition, helping patients living in delusion to correct their perception. He practiced for 3 months, feeling joyful and no longer afraid of roosters. Believing he was cured, he approached the doctor and asked to be discharged. The doctor observed the psychological changes in the patient, noting his attitude and interactions with others, and saw that he had made progress, so he agreed to discharge him. After completing the procedures, the doctor cautiously tested him one last time. He released 3 roosters in front of him. Seeing the roosters, one crowing, another flapping its wings, and the other running around, the patient became confused again. Panic-stricken, he did not dare to leave the gate and turned back. Upon returning to his room, feeling safe after no longer seeing the roosters, the doctor asked, "You said you were no longer afraid of roosters, didn't you?" Patient replied, "Doctor, I am not afraid of the roosters. But how can I make the rooster understand that I can defeat it so it won't peck or kill me at any time?" When the nervous system is misaligned, cognitive distortions can occur. leading to errors in judgment, including deduction, induction, analogy, etc. The result is that the subject of cognition becomes a victim, fear-induced crises, unable to remain calm, peaceful, and happy. Mental patients' perceptions are often skewed. Due to a lack of foundational reality and causality, they feel increasingly alienated from the truth. Instead of directly reflecting the reality, they reflect through an inaccurate lens, leading to distorted perceptions. Delusion is a mental illness, and those who live with this condition suffer greatly. The spiritual path of Buddhism does not merely stop at psychological therapy, but reaches its highest point in treating the mind, supporting, adjusting, and transforming cognition and behavior. This process plays an essential role. With mental disturbances that are difficult to adjust, those affected by this condition will reincarnate with more mental troubles in the next life after their current one ends. Some suffer from mental illness due to hereditary factors from their parents. Others develop it due to social circumstances, psychological repression, or family crises. These socially and psychologically rooted illnesses can be cured when the crisis conditions no longer exist. Family members, in collaboration with doctors, use psychological techniques to support those in crisis from falling into fear. Recovery can take place within a few years. All these misperceptions are inevitable phenomena beyond the patient's control. The great misfortune for these individuals is that they do not know they are ill and do not feel the need for a doctor. They resist and oppose the idea that they have a mental problem. After taking medicine for a few days, they revert to their old behavior patterns. The result is self-inflicted suffering and causing misery to family members, especially those who care for, love, and cherish them. In more severe cases, they may create trouble for the community, becoming a societal burden. Two types of right view. Right view is defined as the leading factor, like the appearance of the sun at dawn, creating life, growth, and activity for all plants, humans, and animals in general. Without sunlight, there would be no dawn, and living species would exist in darkness. The importance of right view is understood in the Pali Canon as the opening of knowledge, with wisdom being its highest peak. Describing the Noble Eightfold Path in the scriptures, the most impressive aspect is placing right view at the forefront. It is understood as the starting point. A person starting with right view is adjusting their perception of the world, life, and social relations based on ethics and following the standards of that perception. After practicing for some time and attaining insight, the scriptures call it the eye of the Dharma or the eye of wisdom, as opposed to the misperception of error or ordinary perception. The starting point of practice is right view, and the result of practice is also right view, meaning wisdom. The Pali Canon divides right view into two levels, mundane right view and supramundane right view. Living an ethical life, developing virtuous behavior, and creating mundane merit, such as observing the 5 precepts and the 3 refuges, allows one to enjoy the blessings they have cultivated after rebirth. In addition to the 5 precepts, practicing the 10 good deeds can lead to rebirth in various heavenly realms after death, depending on the intensity and degree of one's virtuous actions. This represents the non-human realms, such as extraterrestrial life. Practice of right view also has 2 different levels. The basic level, applied in society, it creates mundane merit. At the ultimate level, mostly for monks practicing, it leads to the path of liberation, where the practitioner no longer falls into the 3 realms and 6 paths, thus being called supramundane. Utilizing the correct vision of the noble path for the purpose of gaining joy and happiness, the result is mundane merit within the 3 realms. Of course, even if one is reborn in any realm, they are still subject to the cycle of samsara. A practitioner with right view is someone who lives very ethically, meaning they progress further and further on the path of happiness, not stopping at the accomplishments they have invested in. If we analyze the 2 concepts of mundane right view and supramundane right view, we see that the Noble Eightfold Path, from the perspective of the supramundane, results in unsurpassed enlightenment. The same correct vision, if applied by a layperson practicing Buddhism, leads to mundane blessings in family life. The path of practice for lay people does not necessarily have to aim for liberation. Applying mundane right view is to build happiness through economic, social, cultural, educational, and other aspects in a proper manner. Supramundane right view is the inner strength and goal of the monastic, while mundane right view is the path and trajectory for lay people. Understanding this issue, we do not need to apply the spiritual liberation path of monastics to lay people, as we have done throughout the history of Buddhism's development on various continents. There has been almost no difference in rituals between lay people and monastics until now. And this is a fundamental difference in the concept of the noble path that the Buddha advocated and the path of practice we are following. After a period of practice, lay people who are deeply engaged in the practice of the Dharma become monastics in terms of consciousness. Their body remains that of a lay person, so they cannot fully utilize the capabilities of a monastic, resulting in being stuck between lay and monastic. Due to this confusion, many lay people abandon their work and do not want to pursue their own success. In my opinion, lay people only need to focus on mundane right view. Monastics with the tools, conditions, space, goals, and ideals are required to practice for the result of liberation, repay the gratitude of the three jewels and the donors who have supported them with expectations and acceptance. Conditions for right view. According to the Pali Canon, to attain right view, practitioners must rely on two factors. First, listening. Second, wise attention. Listening, as described in the Right View Sutta, involves effort and commitment, approaching, consulting, and learning from virtuous people, saints, and sages about the content of the Dharma, engaging in exchanges, interactions, and sharing based on learning from experienced practitioners and those who have better practice, thereby expanding one's knowledge of the Dharma in both depth and breadth. Since the 20th century, with the explosion of information technology, ancient texts and scriptures in various languages such as Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and Classical Chinese have been translated into the languages of many countries. In particular, in Vietnam, scriptures translated from the Pali Canon and Chinese Canon have been widely disseminated on the internet. These scriptures have been recorded and made available, allowing for the learning of the Dharma through listening, helping us correct our mistaken perceptions. Listening in Buddhism is called deti, firm listening, meaning listening with a firm standpoint, with a view, not listening blindly, as followers of other religions are trained to listen without questioning. Questioning is considered a challenge to divine authority and is seen as a rebellious sin. Buddhism teaches us to listen and perceive. We can even close our eyes and contemplate each sound with its conveyed meaning, enabling us to have independent cognition, not dependent on the teacher. Wherever there is listening, there is knowledge being received well. The thinking process can lead to practice. So firm listening in Buddhism is a process of mental purification, different from the situation where students sit in class listening to the teacher to understand and accumulate knowledge. Listening in Buddhism is a factor leading to right view, based on the laws, teachings, and practice, helping us to open our eyes to the correct vision, not stopping at mere knowledge. Wise attention is an essential condition for opening the eye of wisdom for practitioners. If listening is considered a database in the interaction process between existing data, not using the old as a foundation to evaluate the new, leading to an easy reception of it, wise attention is decisive data. Wise is understood as conformity to the truth, attention as mental initiation, perception through judgment, deduction, induction, synthesis. It must be based on the reality observed, heard, smelled, and known to reflect faithful. Person with wise attention avoids prejudices, wrong views, and delusions, contradictory psychological attitudes that make a person cling to the self, excessively elevate or severely demean it, are manifestations of ignorance and defilements. As a result, there cannot be correct cognition consistent with the nature of reality. Wise attention is a lens through which all received data reflects faithfully the real world. The perceiver will not have erroneous judgments. If we compare this concept with Nyaya, logic, or Buddhist logic of the Mahayana, then wise attention is understood as direct perception. Direct perception is an immediate, direct view, without the intervention of consciousness and attachment, manas, so this judgment is very accurate. Wise attention is the direct knowledge of science. The cognitive aspect of wise attention helps practitioners evaluate the real world without letting emotions or knowledge from customs and traditions interfere, and not allowing thoughts based on personal pragmatism to negatively influence it. The focus lens of wise attention helps us have a broad and accurate view of the object we are facing in the mind, not just facing it with the eyes. In other words, wise attention makes correct judgments because we have firm listening to the Dharma through the Pali Canon and Mahayana literature in general. To attain mundane right view, firm listening and wise attention are two indispensable data. Deep understanding of cause and effect. A person with right view always has knowledge of cause and effect. There are two types of cause and effect knowledge: flat cause and effect and spatial cause and effect. We can temporarily use mathematics to describe the depth of cause and effect perception. There is a saying, plant melons, get melons. Plant beans, get beans. This is flat cause and effect. There is planting, so there is a result. The relationship between cause and effect is shown through melon seed, melon plants, melon flowers, and melon fruits, which we cannot deny. Cause and effect has a unified process, no matter how conditions influence. The homogeneous nature is still maintained. Even in the situation where we graft from tree A to species B, the homogeneous nature remains, not being broken. We still see this as a type of flat cause and effect, although there are many cases where planting melons yields no melon, and the result is bankrupt. This year, farmers see that chili peppers are profitable, so they invest in them, borrowing money from the bank, buying seeds, fertilizer, and labor. When many farmers do the same, product is still as good as every year, but the market price drops. The market rule is supply and demand. When supply is high and demand is low, prices will drop, and the investment result has a yield, but there is no economic result, leading many to debt. This is similar in other investment fields. In nearly 2 years, due to the impact of the global financial crisis, many farmers have lost everything. This is because they viewed cause and effect from a flat perspective. Developing spatial cause and effect means the multidimensional influence of conditions, the seeds humans have created for themselves not only in this lifetime, but also in the past life, not just their own, but also in relation to the cause and effect of society as a whole. Every historical period, past, and new collective karma has emerged, positively influencing cause and effect in a good or bad direction. Socialism emerged to liberate classism. State-owned economies based on collective farms do not encourage the level of investment, so people possess and privatize. The result is that the socialist economy is not high, leading to the situation we all see. Capitalist economic model previously exploited labor. When socialism emerged, it changed itself, referring to socialist doctrine to innovate. Socialism proposed a good model, could not develop it due to many limitations. Meanwhile, capitalism has become the choice of the current era, with many countries adopting a free market economic doctrine. Nowadays, socialist countries still use this model, but due to the relationship before and after, people are searching for a socialist market economy. In the new collective karma, people accept it to maintain the foundation and absorb the positives. However, whether it is socialism or capitalism, the nature of the market is supply and demand. Applying cause and effect from an economic perspective, we see a great multidimensional impact in all aspects. Financial crisis leads to a global economic recession. The real estate crisis leads to similar results. The stock market crisis leads to the paralysis of the market economy in general. A person with right view has a spatial cause and effect vision, not making superficial judgments about what we invest in. The Madoff scam was unprecedented in human history, causing the world to lose hundreds of billions of dollars. His method of deceiving people was to use the reputation of billionaires and millionaires who wanted to collaborate in financial market activity. When introduced, investors were reassured and entrusted their money. The interest Madoff provided to investors was higher than that of global banks. By encouraging greed and ignorance, people did not need to assess whether Madoff had the ability to generate higher profits from his banking services or not. They continued to invest more and more in Madoff. The need to withdraw cash for use was minimal. If any, it was insignificant. He took money from later investors to pay interest to earlier ones, The money kept circulating, even though he had no real activities. Besides his fake financial activities, creating financial data to report so that people did not suspect, his employees received higher salaries than in other places. The FBI in the United States had warned about this issue 45 years ago. People ignored it. Now it has been discovered, and someone demanded to withdraw nearly $1 billion, but he had no money to pay. The world sentenced him to 170 years in prison and fined him over $100 billion, with all his assets confiscated. Many famous charitable organizations, including the Red Cross, the World Bank, and Swiss banks, were in distress because they had deposited money with Madoff. His financial system was present in 130 countries, directly affecting those countries. In the 1980s, he was honored as the God of Finance. Now we know he is the devil of global finance. Madoff has caused the world to reel in a crisis. Many millionaires who entrusted their money to him couldn't bear it and committed suicide, including a German millionaire ranked 95th globally and 5th in Germany. They saw the cause and effect of financial investment too simply. In other economic activities, greed led to ignorance, and as a result, all our honest investments went down the drain, burning everything, which is a great pain. Understanding the reverse spatial cause and effect, we should not be lenient about depositing money in banks or with private individuals to get high interest rates without knowing what they are investing in, how their economic activities are, or imagining that in a year our money will increase by 15% or more and continue to grow accordingly. The result is that nothing remains. Right view about cause and effect helps practitioners live correctly, avoiding skepticism, making judgments and assessments with direct observation, leading to high accuracy without falling victim to scams due to a lack of knowledge. Anyone who falls into a scam is someone without right view about cause and effect, making superficial judgments. Living with right view can minimize economic risks, reduce occupational accidents and traffic accidents, and ensure the highest level of safety and happiness. Right view is a problem-solving vision, different from a crisis vision. Those with a crisis vision, without the ability to solve problems, will seek to escape from the real world, leading to more failures, suffering, and increasing obsessions. A severely ill person, confined to a bed or wheelchair, without right view, easily falls into negative feelings, asking the doctor or loved ones to use assisted suicide methods to end their life, helping them die peacefully and escape the pain on their body. The Western world has seen an event that has drawn much attention. An 84-year-old man and a 75-year-old woman, who had lived happily together for over 50 years, ended their lives together by drinking poison. When the autopsy was conducted, it was found that the man was in the final stage of cancer and the woman also had a similar illness. They saw that their lives were nearing their end, so they chose death, hoping to continue as husband and wife in the next life. The world has raised new legal issues. Currently, many countries prohibit assisted suicide. Those who encourage, agree, or assist others in dying can face up to 14 years in prison, 3 years in some places. Each country has different penalties. Meanwhile, some other countries accept the use of drugs for assisted suicide, so that patients who can no longer bear physical pain can die peacefully, reducing the burden on their loved ones and saving on hospital costs, considering it a humanitarian solution. The ethics of assisted suicide is still a subject of debate. From the perspective of cause and effect, we see that escaping the suffering of physical existence by ending it early does not mean we will no longer have to pay for physical ailments in the next life. Whether delayed or escaped, we still have to continue to pay for it in the next life. The Buddha taught, let death occur naturally, birth, aging, sickness, and death. Some are born without experiencing aging or sickness and die. Some are old but not sick and die. The law of cause and effect for humans is like that. We should joyfully accept the course of cause and effect to live in peace. A person with right view does not escape from reality, including suffering, obstacles, adversities, challenges, and trials that come to them. The remaining issue is how to handle it. Noble silence. The Pali Canon has a term called noble silence. Towards the end of his life, he used alcohol to relieve his sorrow. Although he was a Buddhist, He could not overcome this habit. Feeling powerless in the face of cause and effect, powerless in the face of all the events of life, powerless in the face of social injustice, powerless in the face of all the things he wanted but could not do, the Buddha called it the truth of suffering. Many people, powerless in the face of the truth of suffering, silent sighers. Buddhism teaches us to be silent, not to sigh, but to have noble silence. Noble silence is understood as silence like meditation. Meditation is a process of transforming emotions, changing perceptions and behaviors, allowing a person to reevaluate themselves, analyze data and the events to find a legitimate solution without negative side effects. When practicing noble silence, psychological stress from social injustice, unfulfilled desires, aversion to what one must encounter, love that must be separated, the desire to stay young without aging, sickness, and death, does not become a burden. Person who is silent in meditation, silent like a noble person, can peacefully resolve all misfortunes that come to them. Right view helps us face problems with strength, not a negative endurance of resignation, accepting everything as destiny. Practicing right view, we no longer sigh in despair. Breathe deeply, gently, comfortably, freely, and at ease. We clearly see the flow of mixed emotions, the direction of the mind with opposing categories, and the notions of the past and future, which have no value. Returning to ourselves in the present, we see clearly that the body is not me. I am not dependent on the body. The suffering clinging to the body and emotions will fall away. With right view, difficulties and obstacles are just conditions like any other conditions that arise. Conditions may be favorable or unfavorable. Favorable is joyful, unfavorable is not sad. There is no reason to falter on the path of our ideals, even if losses occur or results are only relatively achieved. Practicing right view. A person who practices and lives with right view exhibits selflessness from two perspectives: psychological and epistemological. Epistemologically, selflessness is first understood by recognizing that the universe has no initial cause, whether it be a deity, materialism, or the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. Even from an idealistic perspective, one sees the clear process of dependent origination, leading to the operation, existence, development, and decay of all things, allowing a new process to follow similar steps. A significant error is the belief that the world is created from matter or mind. Materialism and idealism are two opposing extremes. Buddhism is not idealism. Many misunderstand the term consciousness only and say Buddhism is idealism. The study of consciousness only should be understood as the study of the mind. Understanding dependent origination helps us not to accept any condition as the origin of the universe, seeing it as multidimensional interrelation. Applying right view helps us see clearly the physical body composed of four principles: solid matter, which includes skin, flesh, bones, marrow, cells, and all the atoms and molecules creating the rapidly operating cells, with a large distance between them, never remaining as they are. Every small fraction of time that passes causes them to become something else. Liquid matter includes tears, mucus, sweat, urine, saliva, and many other things inside that bind the body together, maintaining life through the process of metabolic exchange. It is just a borrowing process. At the same time, thermal and kinetic principles related to high and low body temperature, the movement of breath, the impact of wind and external air on the body, make people live comfortably. Without these two factors, it is difficult for a person to live long, even with solid and liquid matter. Lack of movement leads to illness. The Amitabha Sutra teaches the principle: eat and walk. After eating, take leisurely steps, which means walking meditation. The Buddha did walking meditation without reciting. Just walk, breathe gently, calmly, and mindfully with the body, feelings, mind, and dharma, so as not to suppress the breath in the stomach. Most monks have weak stomachs because they use too much breath in chanting. Practicing epistemology helps practitioners have right view, not equating one of the four principles or all four principles. I and the body are understood as a vehicle, functioning as long as it is harmonious, and we live healthily and long. When disharmony occurs, we will become ill and die, depending on the severity of the illness. A practitioner with right view does not equate the living body as I, the body after death as them. The ashes after cremation are not them. The body buried in the grave is not them. and thus they can escape the body, reincarnating immediately. Psychologically, the selfless person has a humble attitude, seeing clearly that the knowledge they have is not something they created, and correct knowledge is a rule. Theorem. Consequence of all judgments aligned with the material universe and human worldview, and the ongoing developments around us. The Buddha clearly stated in the scriptures that he is not the author of the truth. He merely pointed out the path to approach the truth. He illustrated this with an analogy of a treasure house in the forest. Creepers covered the surrounding trees, preventing many from seeing. When he cleared the weeds, creating a path, those who followed him could reach and see the treasures in the house. Truth has no author. Truth is only found by those who follow the right path, whether in the past, present, or future. Following the correct law can lead to the same truth. The Buddha stated that he is the Buddha who has realized enlightenment, and sentient beings will become Buddhas. He rejected the notion of being the author of truth with the statement, "For 49 years of teaching, I have not spoken a single word." It is not that he shirked responsibility for what he had declared, but to teach us about non-self in the aspect of authorship. For Buddhist practitioners, authorship is not an issue. Truth belongs to everyone, and we are responsible for widely disseminating it. In the world, inventions have authorship. Selling authorship rights can provide a livelihood for several generations. The cause and effect value of selling and buying authorship rights ends immediately afterward. Donating authorship rights has long-term value. A person practicing right view has a vision of applying non-self, both in epistemology and psychology. Their style is comfortable, gentle, modest, simple, yet still maintaining a deep solemnity. Their lotus flower of non-self shines brightly with petals, stamens, and seeds. Other flowers cannot compare. Understanding impermanence. A person with right view always lives in harmony with the principle of impermanence. Non-self applies to matter, impermanence to time. In other words, non-self is space, impermanence is time. No material thing exists or develops independently of time. Space is the space of time. Time is the time of space. Those who understand right view in terms of non-self will understand right view in terms of impermanence. Practicing right view helps us see clearly the evolutionary flow of past, present, and future time. Without expectations, without living in idealism, without idolizing or absolutizing anything, everything in life never goes as we want. It follows the law of causality and conditions, both within itself and the surrounding entities. All changes, including human relationships, the sea turning into land, land turning into sea, trees turning into ashes, deserts turning into forests, are the principle of impermanence. People understand Buddhist impermanence as darkening the real world, leading to despair, making people no longer strive to do anything. That is the negative aspect of impermanence. Impermanence, as the Twin Towers of the United States turned to dust, as the 2 tallest Buddha statues in Afghanistan became relics in the hearts of Buddhists. Due to impermanence, many temples have become dilapidated. Due to impermanence, the young become old, the healthy become sick, and death comes. Due to impermanence, everything changes. Due to impermanence, politics, economy, society, culture, and education are not the same as in the past. Everything is constantly changing. Recognizing the nature of this operation, we do not become overwhelmed and live normally. Applying the spirit of impermanence, Trin Kung Sun stated, "Oh, don't despair. Oh, don't despair. Autumn leaves fall in winter. You are me, I am you." When we clearly see impermanence, people know how to live closely, lovingly, and care for each other in social relationships. Each time a natural disaster occurs, love is sown. Wherever a tyrant appears, a bodhisattva is born. Wherever there is suffering, there is also joy and happiness. It is because of impermanence that these opposites exist. Without impermanence, this would never happen. The Twin Towers of the United States collapsed, but within 30 years, several similar towers have risen around the world. The 2 Buddha statues in Afghanistan are gone, but in China and other places, construction has begun. Impermanence can create new processes with more positive, beautiful, and better values. The people of China have a saying, "The waves of the later push the earlier," meaning that the next generation is increasingly progressing, more skilled, better, and more excellent than the previous generation. The collective karma of each historical period is increasingly being addressed, promoting new inventions. As time goes on, human knowledge develops at a greater rate than in the past, where it took our ancestors several centuries to achieve. All positive developments in life are due to impermanence. This is a special right view. In his work, Madhyamaka Shastra, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna made a very profound statement. Because of the meaning of emptiness, all things are achieved. Because of the principle of emptiness, all phenomena in life are accomplished. And the second statement refers to the positive aspect of impermanence. Most of the world does not know this and therefore considers Buddhism to be pessimistic. The word emptiness in Madhyamaka philosophy is understood as dependent origination. All things and phenomena arise from causes and conditions, which are called emptiness. All phenomena that arise from causes and conditions are taught by me as emptiness. All phenomena and events formed, existed, developed, and operated under conditions are called emptiness. Whatever exists and develops due to conditions is understood as impermanence. Causes and conditions in the physical aspect are non-self. Causes and conditions in time are impermanence. They are two sides of the same issue, inseparable. Thanks to impermanence, positive processes continue to arise. Besides encountering the negative aspect, i.e. the downside of impermanence, we also have the opportunity to encounter the positive side of impermanence. Without impermanence, there would be no night and day, no operation of the moon, no sunlight. Without steps, we would have no destination. Without efforts, we would have no results. All changes and processes mentioned above are called impermanence. Do not understand impermanence as only bringing consequences. Impermanence also has positive results. Person with right view sees this clearly. Value of right view. A person with right view always lives in harmony with ethics. The value of a person with right view surpasses that of those with ordinary knowledge, as clearly stated in the scriptures. Currently, in the United States, there are about 40 universities with Buddhist studies departments, either as an independent department or as part of other fields such as religious studies, Asian studies, Indology, linguistics, Pali studies, etc. In the United States, there are very few Buddhists, and most of the professors are Protestants or Catholic. Similarly, in India, most Buddhist studies professors are Hindus or have no religion at all. Buddhist monks or lay people involved in teaching Buddhist studies are not many. This situation is also present in other countries with Buddhist studies department. Thus, knowledge of Buddhism is different from the application of right view. Anyone studying Buddhism with an experienced teacher after 4 years can lecture on the sutras, explain and resolve issues accurately. This does not guarantee that they live ethically in society. Knowledge of Buddhism is just a means to attain right view, not right view itself. Applying it to ethics and lifestyle is what is called practical right view. A person with right view never kills. They are always conscious of protecting peace, promoting the spirit of love for humanity, protecting animals, and contributing to preventing global warming, not creating environmental crises due to greed, hatred, and ignorance. A person with right view never makes false statements, never uses uncultured language. Whenever they speak, it always brings meaning and value to life. A person with right view never commits adultery, remaining faithful to the principle of one spouse. When the marriage contract legally ends, only then can they choose another partner. A person with right view never uses intoxicants such as alcohol, drugs, ecstasy, or other poisons to harm themselves or others. They do not participate in activities related to producing or selling weapons. Thus, a person with right view is always ethical in action, speech, and thought, receiving mundane merit in this very life. Practicing the final two factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness and right concentration, on the foundation of right effort, practitioner with right view attains the joy and happiness of supramundane merit, developing wisdom at the highest level, the Buddha's wisdom, and achieving supreme enlightenment unparalleled by anything else. In summary, according to the spirit of the Right View Sutra and Pali literature, a person with right view does not have the same political views as the worldly understanding. In Chinese, right view in Buddhism and politics are completely different. In politics, right view is a political stance dependent on a party or political ideology, such as capitalism, socialism, or any political party like the Democrats, Republicans, or Labor Party, etc. In contrast, right view or right understanding in Buddhism is understood as the correct perception of all laws of causality, dependent origination, ethics, practice, joy, and happiness. It is a way of solving problems, striving to make us better, more joyful, happier, and more saintly. Those with political right views sometimes suffer, sometimes rejoice, sometimes are righteous, sometimes become corrupt. A person living with right view, perceiving the world, the universe based on causality, dependent origination, impermanence, and non-self, is certainly ethical in life. The Buddha said the Noble Eightfold Path is the most challenging practice. Achieving right view cannot be done in one day or one night. Many people must spend several lifetimes reincarnating to practice it. Some, due to the development of their knowledge, are already at a certain level, so they can attain right view just by listening. The role of right view leads the remaining 7 factors of the Noble Path. The lowest value of right view is attaining mundane happiness, while the highest is becoming a saint of supramundane merit.